What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we're going to talk about this headline, which reads, Dana White approves Conor McGregor to fight in the BKFC. That's the headline. And in quotes, if that gets him back into the octagon, go ahead. Let's look at this and see what kind of merit we can put to this, if this is just a bunch of bullshit, or if this is something that we can actually see happening. Because I have some thoughts on this. It reads, Conor McGregor is the co-owner of a bare knuckle fighting championship. This sport, which is particularly boxing without gloves, is a sensation to the point that they will be touring in Florence, Italy. In a press conference to give more visibility to the event they are about to present on April the 26th, the Irishman made some statements that left the entire MMA community speechless. If you think I'm here giving these speeches and leading these men into battle and that I'm not going to step in there myself, think again. Without a doubt, Conor McGregor will fight in the BKFC. Mark my words, I would do it for free, Conor said at the conference. But not everything would be so easy for Conor McGregor, as he is under contract with the UFC. He still has 2 fights remaining on his contract, and it is not yet clear when he will fulfill them, as it does not seem to be his plans to return to the octagon short term. That idea doesn't sound so crazy in the world of MMA, as David Feldman, president of BKFC, met with UFC boss Dana White to get the yes before giving McGregor an investment in the company. So, all right, let's stop there for a second. All right, so basically, Dana White, knowing that he still has Conor under contract for 2 fights, gave his blessing for Conor to meet with David Feldman and to, discuss some sort of co-ownership or whatever. Okay, now, do you think that meeting would have ever happened without Dana and David Feldman himself having kind of a spit in the handshake and, we'll work together, We'll work together here, to maximize our profitability with the huge name of Conor McGregor. Dana, there's no way Dana would have stepped in as a part of that unless he also bought share in the BKFC and is going to stand to get some off of the back end for that, or they had a spit and a handshake, and we can, do some sort of conglomerate sort of thing where this will also fulfill his contractual status for the UFC. He fight in the BKFC, me, Dana White, or the UFC gets a portion of that profit sort of thing because Conor is still the UFC, right? So that's the only 2 ways that would actually happen. There is something at stake. I think the UFC will probably be willing to collaborate in that regard because they collaborate with bare knuckle. And Conor is an owner, a minority owner. So there might be something there if that gets Conor back in the ring, said Brendan Schaub, UFC legend, on his podcast. Brendan Schaub. UFC legend, huh? Am I misremembering Brendan Schaub's career? I don't know about a UFC legend, but hell, he's fought in the UFC. I've never done that, so can't talk shit about the guy. The most incredible thing is that this could also increase the value of the shares, and that would make more money for the minority shareholder, Conor McGregor. The Irishman would generate a lot of headlines, and everyone would be talking about him. BKFC could attract veterans of the UFC. The fighter has said several times that he would love to see great figures in the UFC who can no longer compete at the top join his bare-knuckle fighting promotion, such as the rumored case of Fedor Emelianenko. Listen, I'm sorry. Fedor was the man back in the day, but Fedor is 48 years old, guys. Bad fighting with former good names is still bad fighting. I'm sorry. I don't want to see that dude's my age. I would like to think at 48 years old, I'm still a world beater and all the rest of it, but no. My 32-year-old self would beat my ass right now. Okay. It's just the way it is. I don't know. I might fight a little smarter, a little more conservative now, but either way. So where is all this coming from, and why such trouble getting Conor McGregor back into the octagon. And I have a certain stance on this that I don't really hear anyone talking about, but I think this is in fact the case. And to explain my point, I want to mention the name Chris Weidman. Okay? Chris Weidman suffered a similar injury as did Conor McGregor several years back. I'm sure you guys remember, literally a compound fracture right in the middle of the leg. His was a little higher up than what Conor's was, but very, very similar sort of injury. Okay? This is a serious injury. Okay? And what people don't think about is when healing from something like this and when the surgery takes place and all this other stuff, yeah, you got muscles, tendons, and bones to worry about, but you also have the more micro things to worry about on a microscopic level. Blood vessels, nerves, things that require circulation to be in full force, because if you're not getting blood circulating properly to a part of your body, guess what? That body part dies. Okay? And I remember at least one interview with Chris Weidman just months after his injury, and this dude broke down into tears talking about this process because of what the doctors had told him, right? And something went wrong with the first surgery. They weren't getting the sort of blood flow that they needed to that area. And literally, this dude was told, I want you to be prepared for the worst, because if we can't get, the circulation to take and the blood vessels all connected back together and everything properly. I'm not a doctor, so I know I'm probably, this is the layman's way of saying this, but basically they said, hey, we could end up having to amputate your leg if this doesn't go right. Okay? Now, let's think about that. Let's think about the kind of injury that Conor had. And now let's think about the idea of getting back into the UFC, where people know that you had that injury and where people are going to be throwing full steam 90-mile-per-hour fastball leg kicks at your lower leg. Okay? After suffering an injury like that, do you think that's something you would want to do? If the bone in your lower leg literally went and broke in half, and you had to go through months and months and months and months and months of treatment and, the surgery and then the physical therapy that followed and all those things. And then, of course, the fear that is associated with something like that as an athlete. What if I can never fight again? What if I can never kick again? What if this absolutely adversely affects my career? He's thinking all of these things. So there's a mental component that goes along with this. It's not just physical, right? And I would not be shocked at all if a doctor has told Conor and advised Conor, listen, can't tell you what to do. You're a grown man. You make your own choices. We understand you're a fighter. That's your career. But I would not advise you to ever go in and take leg kicks again. I would not advise you to ever go in and give leg kicks again. If this thing goes south again, could be worse the next time. Could have to amputate the leg. I mean, listen, I'm not saying that it's likely, but you have to understand it's always a possibility, okay? That if it went wrong again, the damage could be even greater, and then you're not only going to have to go through all of that shit again, but there's a potential that shit can just completely go south. The circulation doesn't take. And then, you're a guy hobbling around on a cane, or worse, has to get your lower leg amputated because it's gangrenous. Okay? And I know it sounds crazy, and I know people, oh, come on, bro. I mean, it's a little bit sensationalized. Not really. Not really. It's a real possibility. And then you think of it from a perspective of a guy like Conor, who's already a multi-millionaire. Is it really worth it for him to put his body in that sort of harm's way? I mean, what he's going to go and make fighting for the UFC, you could re-injure your leg and never be able to perform again as an athlete. That's a big freaking deal, okay? And I think that behind the scenes, Conor and Dana and Hunter, and I think he sat down with the UFC, maybe even with the doctor along with it and explain, like, look, I understand I have 2 fights left, but I do not think it's a good idea to take kicks, give kicks. If I re-injured this thing, that could absolutely be the end of my career and my ability to make money in the fight game, right? Then you have a BKFC option where, guess what? You don't take kicks. There are no leg kicks because this is bare knuckle boxing, not kickboxing, not MMA. It is boxing. Okay, so this is a way that he could go in there and they could profitize off of him based on his name value as a prize fighter, but that he doesn't have to take kicks and he doesn't have to give kicks, right? And I guarantee you, if this is a conversation that Conor, the doctors, and Dana and David Feldman all have had this talk in the background, yeah, Dana's a businessman, bro. He would absolutely understand that. And his look on that would be not to try to sue Conor or guess it. No, he's going to try to work with David Feldman, work with Conor, because you never burn bridges in business, and you certainly never burn bridges with a guy who's worth as much money and has the name value of somebody like Conor McGregor. That's bad business. You want to stay in good with a guy like that, right? Dana knows this. So if this was the case, Dana would absolutely be open to either buying a portion of the BKFC so that he could get a cut of whatever Conor does in there, or just spit in a handshake, sign a contract. Hey, Conor can come fight in the BKFC, the UFC and Dana White, or TKO. It's this much. I think that this is absolutely doable. I think this is absolutely a possibility that this could happen. A lot of people don't believe it, but I've been believing it for quite a while, that it is a strong possibility that Conor McGregor will never fight in MMA again. Actually, I'm the only one that I've heard say that, dude, he doesn't want to take leg kicks anymore. But the only reason I think that is because I saw that interview with Chris Weidman, big, strong, tough dude, literally brought to tears, talking about how this could potentially affect his ability to ever be able to perform again, to ever be able to make money as a prize fighter, even to walk, even the threat of possibly losing your lower leg. Think about that, dude. And Conor's injury was very similar. I think this is a strong possibility. Now, we can't say when, can't say how, but I think that this is the reason that they're looking to do that. Conor still has a huge name. They're still trying to get what they can as far as monetarily from Conor while he's still somewhat in his prime, okay? And the way to do that, if he has expressed that he's not interested in ever fighting in MMA again, Dana's not going to say, no, get your ass in there. I don't care if you get kicked in the leg. I don't care if you lose your leg. I mean, is that what he's going to do? Conor McGregor's a huge star, man. In a lot of ways, his name became just as big, if not bigger, than the UFC itself. Dana's not an idiot. He hasn't gotten as far as he has in business by being an idiot. No, he's not going to do that. He's going to do what he can to work with Conor in any capacity that he can, because anytime you can work with Conor, that's good. And I know it says here, if it gets him back in the octagon, hey, we're all about it. They are not going to say right out loud that this is the case with Conor, okay? Because then you're looking at damaged goods. And then you're looking at closing off that dream that people have, that fans have, of Conor one day fighting in MMA again, right? If you go and say, well, the doctor said, well, whatever, and Conor is, concerned that if he were to ever re-injure that leg, then blah, 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 then Conor's damaged goods, right? And the hope of him ever fighting in MMA again goes away. And it goes away from the fans, and it goes away from the sports world, and it goes away from the general public, right? You don't want that. You want to keep that possibility alive, and as time moves along, transition into other ways to make money for him, right? I wouldn't be surprised to find out 4 years from now, once his UFC contract's long gone, in the latter part of his 30s, that it comes out that, yeah, Conor never had a plan to fight in MMA again. Yeah, the plan was to never fight in MMA again after he got that leg injury. I'm telling you, I would not be surprised to learn that. There's a reason keeps getting put off and off and off and off. You telling me it's that hard for Dana White and Hunter Campbell and Mick Maynard and Conor McGregor and all of them to get together and make a deal, make a fight? Nah, it's not. It's not. They've been trying to find a way to keep his name relevant and keep it synonymous with the UFC so that you can keep all of those fans and that potential revenue stream stringing along behind him, waiting for something, right? But at the same time, figure out an exit plan, figure out a plan B to monetize Conor McGregor. That's what's been going on, and that's what I think's happening. So as to whether, he'll get back into the octagon, if this was what gets him back into the octagon, fine. No, I think that's all they're doing. They're kind of trying to keep the MMA fan base, because there's still an MMA fan base and there's a BKFC fan base, right? And at least right now, they're not one and the same. There's people that are really, really into MMA but don't give a shit about BKFC, and then there's people that are really into BKFC but aren't into MMA. At this point, you don't want to take Conor out of the MMA conversation, because there's so many MMA fans to be lost, and they understand that. And these are potential pay-per-view buyers eventually, right? So they're trying to keep these people strung along until they can make another plan to get Conor back into some sort of ring, whether it's the octagon or the squared circle, one of the two, right? Because one thing that we do know, MMA fans, many, will become BKFC fans as soon as what? You got it. As soon as Conor steps into that BKFC squared circle. That's right. I don't watch the BKFC regularly. You think if Conor goes and fights in the BKFC, I'm not going to watch that as a longtime MMA fan? Fuck yeah, I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch that. And to be honest, despite the fact that he's older, despite the fact that he's coked up, I think Conor busts some heads in the BKFC, if I'm being honest with you. He's going to be knocking fools out in there. It's perfect for him. No kicking. Doesn't have to worry about the takedown, the grappling. And Conor's hands have always been some of the best. Again, a lot of reach for a guy in the lightweight division area. Anyway, that's what I think. Maybe it happens. We don't know when, but I'll definitely be watching it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think this is actually going to happen? And if so, do you think that there will be a plan for Conor to return to MMA after this fight in the BKFC? Or is that just something that Dana is saying so that they can kind of continue to string along the MMA fans and they don't have to close the door completely on the hopes of Conor once again fighting in the UFC, right? Even though that door might actually already be closed, they don't want the fan base to know that, right? Smart business. Smart business. But subscribe to the channel if you would, like the video, and again, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.